Hi everybody, welcome. I'm at home and I'm going to just do a couple sketches of some turtles. I thought I'd do a couple silhouette studies. Really quick, I'm going to put this information up on the blog, but I just went through and I gathered some online reference here, that's really important to me, looking at just some variations of detail in the way the eyes are. I love this texturing pattern that's here. This is a sea turtle, of course, so a little bit different fins and arrangement there. I came across this too. I really like that face and that little snap part there. I like the nose and the eyes. There's a lot of cool features. I like the wrinkles in this guy and this sort of black, almost looks like a little hat that he has on in the back there. So there's a lot of little detail. And then I came across this guy. He almost felt like somewhat prehistoric. I mean, he almost looks like he's part rock and he has a really weird texture to him. So and then, of course, this little guy, just sort of reaching up, really tiny, but that head shape in there, like the webbed hands and feet, that's something I might be able to use. So what I do when I gather my reference like this is I like to look at little bits in detail. Look at the curves in this guy's face. He's very organic, and he looks very sort of evil, too. And then he has this, almost looks like old, wrinkled sort of skin, and that's something that I might be able to do or apply in part of my design process. And then, of course, I came across just some other sketches from some other artists, that I thought were pretty. That's the one and the only Peter Deceived, which is absolutely fantastic. Some really fun sketches there. Came across that finished illustration there. And just some other stylized. Again, I just look for examples. This is Philip Dixon. I came across his stuff. A lot of fun. Variations, turtle standing up. I like how he's about to go down. Nice shape in the forearms, some good variations in there. So, I just like looking for just some differences that might guide me through part of my design process. Again, I'm not going to copy anybody's stuff, but I just look at how this artist used that shape there. That's very convenient. It's sort of a very flat wedge-like sort of shape, the way the head's tied in, the shell in there. And I like that the way he's telling this sort of story about this turtle. He almost feels like a sort of witch doctor approach or feel. So that's sort of cool too, is you can put a theme to your particular character as well, which I think is great. So again, reference is key. I like looking at other people's art sometimes, but what's really important to me is that I look at the reference like this and I find these little details and little bits of information that can help guide me through part of my design process. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here real quick. I got Sketchbook Pro up, and I'm just going to sit and sketch out some rough comps and see where I end up in part of that process. Okay, now I didn't get to start any silhouettes. I've already been sort of thinking about some shapes, but there's a couple things I really like about Sketchbook Pro. There's just a feature in here that I could fill really quick, so I'm just going to go through a couple elements here and fill. And what's really cool about Sketchbook Pro is you can do something like this, is you can stay really sort of rough and loose with part of a character. And I can get in here, let's say, I sort of like this idea of a flat type of bill. Now let's say I just come in here, let's say this guy has a little bit of a longer neck. Okay. This might be like silhouette number 1 in here, and I like that squash that's happening in there. So what's pretty cool with Sketchbook Pro, what I can do is I could fill that really fast. So hold on, let me erase that right there. And if I come over here and if I grab, hold on, I don't know what happened to my, oops. Let's get my brushes back open there. And if I grab the bucket here, I can just go like this. Do you see that? And sort of come along and I could fill part of that shape. And actually I like, sometimes it picks up little elements. See, that time I missed. So that's easy. Let's just Command Z. Go back a notch there. My bad. One second there. Let me pause the recorder. Okay, sorry about that. I lose quite a bit of memory in my system when I'm doing a recording. So I didn't have a closed loop in there. So again, what's really cool is, I sort of like the way that silhouette's coming across. And I can just come back here and I can fill up the legs. Just make sure you have, it's pretty self-explanatory. I just find this really easy and convenient. Sometimes I like these little lines that get left. I like that big eye in there. That could be something that I could use to my advantage. I think Sketchbook Pro is a really fun program. It's really cost efficient program. It doesn't cost that much. But that might be one of my first passes. And again, what I like to do when I draw is I just like to get into it. I don't like to really think about what's happening because I find it sort of, an exploratory process. I like that idea where one turtle was sort of like it was coming out. So part of me wants to get in here and see what happens if I sort of, push up that shell a little bit. And maybe the shell comes down here and then wraps around. Maybe it comes up here, and then this character might have this, snout that comes in like this. And that head shape sort of comes in here. So again, what's really important for me is really exploring and seeing where I'm going to end up with my shapes, okay? Nothing wrong with going back into your silhouette right now. I didn't address any eyes in there. Maybe his eyes pop out a little bit like so. Okay, again, sticking with shape. So again, I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to fill this. Boom, boom, boom. Let's pause. I did it again, guys. Let me back up there. God, I never have any problems when I'm drawing when the recorder isn't on. Maybe it's a memory thing, right? Okay, sorry about that. I think there was a problem here in the sketch right here. I had a little open area there. Okay, that's cool. It's funny, I'm trying to get back into cartoony mode because I've been doing like a bunch of realistic sketches this past week of mechs and stuff. That's the one that's causing the problem right there. So let me go back there. See, I don't have part of that leg closed. That's the only thing you have to remember, and I haven't used this program for a while. I need to press down a little bit harder here in part of my gesture that's developing there. Okay, so I'm not quite pressing down enough. That's okay. So here, let's fill these shapes right in here. Okay, get that little shape there. See, I sort of like how I got that little highlight left. And there's nothing wrong. Sometimes you just take the little marker here and I fill up whatever might be left in there. But I like that little natural, just that little bit of a highlight that got left in there on that front shell. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's another silhouette shape for me to get into. Okay, cool. And let's take my eraser. I'm just going to come across the top here. I like to stay a little loose. Sometimes it gets me, I want to go back and clean up a little bit, but then sometimes I can lose part of that energy and part of that sketch that I'm developing. Let me clean this guy up a little bit too. Let's get rid of some of that. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll see something like I see that curve in there a little bit more. And then if I can get that, and then maybe he has like a backside in there a little bit. More of a point there. So I'll see if I could accentuate part of a facial feature as I'm working. Absolutely, come back into it. See if you can push maybe shapes around a little bit more. Kind of like that. It's pretty cool. Okay. And I just keep going from here. I'm on 11 by 17 piece of paper. I just got one layer there. I tend to draw in the middle of the paper like this, and then I'll move my drawings along and just keep progressing. So again, let's continue with some more turtle funs here. So here I had a round shell. Here I had something a little bit more angled. Sometimes I like to think like what would happen if the shell like hit a wall. If there's a lot of force in there. So what if I come in here and imagine like someone threw that shell and it just came over here? That might be the little. So maybe it's I need to come back in here and just sort of pick this up, and then maybe this little neck sort of pops out like so, and then maybe he's got this large sort of face that comes in here like so, right? Like pushing that shape a little bit more. Maybe he's got these really small sort of front legs, and I like these dinosaur like little tips you can put on there. Now that's detail, but that's fine. I'm just sort of rough, sketching him out. Let's get him level right here. Sometimes I do this in my sketches. I imagine like, hey, there's a center line in there, right? And then maybe this little shape comes back here, and then maybe he's got these powerful back legs like this, okay, that sort of come off of him. So I'm going to come back in here now and try to get that other leg that might be coming forward a little bit like so. Okay, so that's another sketch. So what I like to do when I do my sketches, and if you guys want to see more detailed sketches, up on my YouTube site, I have a bunch I mean, they're like 2 hours long of thumbnails on like mechs and robotry getting really detailed. Either way, I'm still thinking about, center line construction, drawing through parts. Look, center line on that face. That really helps me to imagine drawing through, getting that other leg to connect. If that leg's there, look, that's connecting up to the shoulder. Those are really, really important parts to me and part of my sketch process. Now I'm making sure all my lines, I think all my lines are pretty filled there. They're looking pretty good. Okay, I don't see any major issues. Watch, I turn the whole page black again. Nope, not that time. That's pretty cool, right? Got most of them filled in there. And I might come in here, just take that marker tip again. Okay, fill them in a little bit more in here, a little bit more in there. This is my process that I like to evolve with my silhouettes. I've probably said that like 4 times. I have a tendency to repeat myself when I'm at home and doing a demo. And it's funny, you get used to demoing in a class because there's students there and you have to actually look up, make eye contact. But now that I'm doing this here at home, okay, I get a little different feel. So I really like that sway that's happening in there. I think there's a lot in there. And he's got to have like, he's got to have a little crisp tail, little fat little stubby tail maybe that sort of pops out like that. Okay, so look, I'm already getting some cool variations of shape that I like in there. Sometimes what I like to do, let me move these over really quick. Okay, so here, let me take the lasso tool here. And it works a little different inside Sketchbook. You have to select it and you have this option here. So now I can move them up to the top. Let me bring my paper over a little bit and see where they are. That's pretty good. And then even here, and then it's weird, you have to close it. Now I have to select, like if I want to move them a little bit closer like so, I can come over here and then move them a little bit closer to each other. Okay, and then just hit close. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm 10 minutes in. Let's do a couple more silhouettes here. Sometimes what I like to do is I just sketch down below. So I sketch on the page, looking at the shapes I've already created, and then see where it takes me. Now, one thing I've been doing in these is I have all 3 of the shells being the sort of dominant size, right? So one thing I was wondering is on this next sketch here, let's switch it up a notch, right? What if I have my shell that's sort of here? So I like that center point. What if it's sort of sleek? Okay, where it's maybe just sort of long like this. Okay, and then what if this guy's head just sort of starts to veer out of here, right? And when I get up here, he's just got this mean, nasty sort of bill shape, He looks like he got a couple of wrinkles in there. That connects in here. And then maybe, again, I think the turtles are just fantastic for, maybe this guy's pissed off because he's from the ocean or something, right? So maybe he has those other type of feet like this, And I could change that a little bit later. Now I'm thinking about it. Those are just so cute. They're nice, cutesy feet. So I don't want to keep those feet in there right now, so I'm going to erase those out. Okay, and let's just come back in here. Let's give him, I'm thinking he's got legs that are so like darn thick, like he can barely walk, and that's why he's maybe pissed. He's just older, almost like he needs a cane. He's got big fat legs there. We come back here, and maybe I can really push part of that silhouette and get that rear leg to sort of pop in like that a little bit. And then I'm going to come back over here and see if I can do the same thing. Again, draw through the shape. If that leg's coming forward, it's going to end about there. So maybe it's something like about there. And there's not much room because it's in the back. But maybe he's got these little dinosaur nails or whatever. And then maybe on this guy, maybe I'll trace something different. Like maybe part of his shell protrudes outward like that. He's like the curmudgeon. I don't know. Maybe he's got little ear points or something. So anyway, that's enough. See, I'm starting to draw too much into them. Back to silhouette, Phil. I do it too. We're all human, right? You see a design, you just start working with it, and you just keep developing it and see where it takes you, Fill them up. Okay. There we go. Almost done. Get that little shape. Get that corner. Corner, corner, corner. Okay. And let's just come back in here. Now, I'm already realizing as I'm doing this, I'm feeling this need to want to look at more reference because I'm just sort of making this up as I go. And part of me wants to really take a look at a little bit more reference and shape to get a good idea of little details on that face and structure. But then again, maybe I need to wait on that. Maybe I just need to do a couple more silhouettes, keep exaggerating, and see where I end up. So I'd love to sit and do a couple pages, but I'm trying to get this demo done in an hour because I want to explain to you guys what sort of my process is and what the process I want to walk you through in the class is when it comes to doing some of your designs. Okay? So when you think about it, look, I got 4 different designs done there, and I've done these in, I'm like 12 minutes into this or something. So, I mean, imagine I had some of you guys for homework do 3 to like 5. I mean, that's like 15 minutes altogether on all the characters. That's 45 minutes. So, I mean, take the time to devote a little bit more than that to what you have, So, I don't know. If I had the time that you guys have, if I wasn't teaching full time, had a family, kids, taking care of mom and dad, I mean, I would just spend so much more time. I really would, I wouldn't do like Norman Rockwell and lock myself in my studio or anything, but without a doubt, it would definitely spend a lot more time. Okay, so there, I got some cool directions. Now I'm looking at that shell, and look, I want to just, part of me wants to come back in here, so maybe I'll try this. I'm looking at this character, and I like that weird looking shape with that sort of maybe a goiter for a neck. So I'm going to copy that and paste it, and let me see what happens if I move him over here, down here real quick, and then I'm going to scale him. Remember, I forget the way to, there it is. There's a way to scale, and I'm zoning out right now because I'm tired. How do I scale left to right? There's a way to do it, and I'm zoning out, and I don't remember. Was it this way? No. Anyway, that's fine. I was going to squash them inward. I know there's a way to do it. Now I can't remember because my brain's on empty. But that's okay. So let me go back to my pencil there. So what I was thinking is, what if he had a shell? Maybe his shell just sort of pops up like this. And then he just sort of comes down a little bit. Maybe something like that. Definitely getting a more pointy sort of feel or angle in there. Maybe little shells, little ends pop up out of there. Okay, that could be fun, right? Just another alternative. Okay, let's go to pen. It's funny, I haven't done this for a while, and I'm trying to get in my groove, and I'm not quite grooving out yet. That's okay. Maybe that'll happen in the class, okay? There, so that's sort of another version. Let me go back to lasso. Let me keep him nice and let me scale him down a little bit. Okay, another version. Let me move him over. Okay, so deselect, and let's keep doing a couple more. Okay, let's see what to do next here. Just thinking like really heavy round shapes. Yeah, what if he just has this little forehead, big sort of head here, shell comes down. What if it wraps like all the way here, and literally he's like almost, I was imagining this like no feet, he's just like boom, that's it, really short. Maybe he has little teeth that come up. Okay, I'm going to start to hit that guy right there, so I'm just going to quickly move him real fast. Okay, move him down about there. So there we go, deselect. And let's see what else I can, let's figure out how I'm going to push more. I like that leg, looks like he's maybe pushing forward a little bit. Okay, so that's another variant. Maybe he's got this little tail that sort of comes out there. Okay, maybe that's why he's so grumpy. I don't know. Okay, that's in one variation. Again, center line, doesn't hurt to draw through the shape, figure out where the other side might be. His other side's going to be back over here, so you might have a leg that's sort of coming out through there, something like that. Okay. All right, and just gonna keep going on this. So I'll fill them in a minute. Let me see if I can finish. Let's do a mad rush and see if we can spend another 10 minutes on the page, and maybe I'll take one or two and then start identifying what they look like. And that'll be cool because then I'll have that demo to take forward in the class. So, look, here I am. I got my thumbnail. So if you want to do this process where now you're getting in and you're staying rough and you're starting to figure out much more of the shapes of your turtle, go for it. That's totally fine. Okay. Real quick, what I want to do is, because I got that, I mentioned it a minute ago, is, hold on, I got to find my dumb window here, Phil. I think I closed it. I'm craving that reference to look at. I want to see my reference again. Okay, and that's just that's the way I've always sort of been. Is I don't want to take advantage of. I want to make sure I stay true to part of my design thoughts and philosophy, and just take a look at. Not this. I should have kept that separate. I just want to look at realistic photos of turtles. Yeah, look at that snap. Really like that. Look at his mouth is sort of nasty too. That guy's sort of cool. That's like the Godzilla turtle, isn't it? It's almost like that Godzilla head. I wonder if that's inspired any other designers. Look at that. You know what? I like that guy a lot. Look at the flow in that head. I like him. Let me see if I can sketch another guy like him after looking at that reference over here. So I'm going to go ahead, move the reference down here. And so I want to try to keep some of those flowing shapes. So I'm imagining he might have a huge sort of like head ball in here. Okay, and maybe he's just got these sort of large eyes. Maybe is where that part connects in here and overhangs his shell. It's funny, now just sketching him now, I'm already seeing this cool like old man turtle with these like large eyes, and he's got like rough, I think I check if that's where the noses are. He's got like gum lines or something in there. He has false teeth, right? So part of me's now I'm getting in here and I'm thinking, what if he's like so skinny, right? So look at that. I went trying to look at, that's the fun thing about designing. I went for that and I ended up with an old man turtle. That's fine. No. Maybe he's got fluffy eyebrows, right? Because he's an old man turtle. Turtles can have eyebrows, right? Why not? So there, I like that. Look, he's got the Adam's apple that's like popping out. And this comes in. And now I'm going to come in here and just figure out, maybe he's just sort of, the shell comes up. And then it just sort of fades off and drops back like that. Almost looks like it's dragging sort of behind. Okay. And then let's come in here with the feet. Okay. So it goes. There's another, that's what I call sort of another rough pass, right? It's rough. There's not too much detail. I'm just getting a good idea or feel for what I might have, just like I did on this guy. Okay, and I could revisit this guy again. This is just, getting into it, sort of pass number one, right? Absolutely. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Okay. All right, now it's going to move over here, and let's see. Again, I want to look at this reference. Let me see if I can look at that reference a little bit more. Look at that. Man, that guy's just fascinating to me. Look at that curve in there, and then that up and down. It's almost like a series of it's like a saw blade or something. So let me see if I can incorporate, see where that takes me. So it comes down, up again. I'm not really feeling him as much, but that's okay, right? Just see where it takes me. Maybe the eyes are too... Just jumped in there too fast. I shouldn't be jumping into the eyes. Let's go back to shape. Go back to shape. Stay simple, right? The eyes could be much smaller. Like that. Okay, let's go shape. Large shell that ends there. Boom. Straight line across. Maybe we barely even see the rear feet. And he's got these like mammoth giant front feet. Okay. Center line. Cut the shape a little bit. Okay. I'm just going to darken up some of the edges here. He's got like a little tusk that comes out. It's prehistoric. He's got a little saliva that hangs down. I could still push those shapes a little bit more, but it's something different in there, you know? That's cool. Alright, I'm at 26 minutes here, which isn't bad. Getting some fun designs off of this. Okay, so there's another sort of little turtle pass. I haven't figured out what the eyes or anything would be, but I'm liking those in the direction that I'm moving on to for my first pass. It's not bad. So what I was talking about in class, this is what I was talking about when I made that comment. Uh-oh. Let's deselect, sorry. Let me get this first. So this is what I was talking about roughing out and exploring some of your shapes more. This is sort of that transition that I'm making right now, is I'm looking at how these shapes are going to start to work based off of the influence of some of my silhouettes that I have. Okay, let me get this guy here too. Something else too is I tend to draw off size quite a bit, and I think that's totally fine. What I do when I do go off size is I just sort of, you know, scale them back down and try to get them to fit in a little bit more. And then what I like to do is get all these together. Let's deselect, you know, and then sometimes I come back in and I just start thinking about textures or something else I could sketch on here. Like this guy I love is this, I really like the big round eyes and the beak that's coming out with that Adam's apple. So part of me just wants to come in here and I just want to go like this. You know, if you start to see a particular shape, and it's going to be fun for you to develop, just go for it. Just don't get caught up in all the teeny details right now. Just have fun. You know, that's not doing that much to it. I'm staying super rough, but I'm adding some more information there. And I think what I like, I think what I liked about this guy here is he's like he's got like these zebra stripes. Or actually, you know what, maybe I could, you know, like the old snake saying, red and yellow will kill a fellow, and then red and black, venom will lack. Maybe that's something that I could use on him. Maybe that shell wraps around like that. Comes up here, wraps over, gets a little thicker. And I forgot how I had that go on the other side here. Maybe it just ends right there, and the foot comes out. So I could develop him a little bit more, okay? So let's go on, let's keep going here. And let me save the demo real quick just to make sure we don't have any major issues. I'll be right back. Hi guys, welcome back. Phil here. So thanks for holding on there. I just had to save everything real quick. So I got up, I walked away, and it's funny, just like a lot of you guys had in class. I mean, I'm starting to look, and I feel like I started off a little rough. I like some of these shapes, but I really start to like what I'm starting to develop right here. So I'm just going to keep going now. I'm going to fill up another row or two right here. I'm having a lot of fun with these curves. One of the things, though, that I thought of doing is that whenever I'm drawing, I like to stop, and then I like to go in the opposite direction of what I was working in. So I had a lot of curves happening here. So I think what I'm going to try to do now is I'm trying to get some more angular directions. And you know what? Before I go, I just realized I haven't saved. Uh-oh. And I got a warning already. Maybe it's because of the recorder. Sorry about this. Let me save real quick. Let me go to desktop and just save it to desktop. And let's call this Turtles. Turtl. Just real quick, just in case it crashes, right? Hey, when you're eating up all your computer's memory, stuff crashes all the time. Now I can just do a command save. Okay, so let's go back to drawing. So same thing here. Now I'm thinking this. Angles. Go opposite of what I've been doing. I was getting some round. Because I looked back at this guy, and I really liked how this head angle was sort of pushing in here. And that little cornered. So let's start with that. So let me come in here. What if, though, I had him, like, really in this shape? Like something like that. Bear with me for a minute. Let me see where I end up with this. You know, it's okay too, you guys, to fail. You know, I shouldn't say to fail. It's not okay to fail my class. No, let me back up there. It is okay to fail in part of your design process. If you started to draw something and it ends up not going the way that you like, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's an old expression, I worked with this wonderful character designer named Phil Mendez, and he worked with some of a couple of the great animators from Disney. He was trained by them, and he used to say, you have to get the bad drawings out in order to get the good drawings to come. You know what I mean? You got to sit and draw and just sketch and see what happens. And for somebody that worked with like some of the 9 Old Men and had part of that background, I think that's a pretty cool thing to admit to, is that we're not all little robots or perfect artists, and you have to sit and sketch sometimes and get bad drawings to come out before you can, jump into really successful drawings. I think part of that is based on part of the practice, right? There. Try getting some more angles in there, I'm not quite sure if I really like that right now, but that's all right. I can come back to that a little bit later. Okay. Try to get a feel of what's happening. Can't really see that other leg in there. It might be in somewhere about there. That's all right, though. Every now and then that little voice in my head goes off. It's like, it sucks. Throw it away. No, you know what? That's okay. It's no big deal. Let me scale them down real quick. It's just another pass. I actually that could be a good jumping stone for me. Part of me was tempted to just fill him up real quick. So let me do that real quick. Got a couple lines there that aren't connected yet. Let's see if I don't fill the page black. Okay, that's pretty cool right now. And the rest I can just come in here and just sort of oops. Because the way I like to work is I'll do a set of designs, and then later on tonight when I'm going to bed or tomorrow morning when I'm up, I'll think of something where that's like a little tail idea. Maybe I don't need a little tail on them. Let's take that off. And what I was going to say is that I'll think of something that'll come to mind that'll be more of a solution to part of my design problem. They're all design problems. It doesn't matter if I'm building a mech, doing a sculpture, doing a digital paint, whatever. You're always designing. And I could come into something later and be like, oh, if I took that and mixed it with something else, and I might come up with another solution, and that could really work, and so on. That happens sometimes. Gotta be careful there. He's starting to get sort of camel-like, It really has to come Do a point, maybe. Alright, so that's another pass. Let's just keep going from there. Let's, again, now that I have that silhouette, I might look at that and sketch up some other ideas and see where it's going to take me. Okay. I could tell, to be honest with you, right now, I could tell I'm getting fatigued because I've been at work from 8 in the morning and it's now 11 o'clock at night, and I wanted to jump on this demo and I am starting to get tired. That's okay, because when you're tired sometimes you end up with your best design that comes out from just an idea or a rough sketch, right? And you get looser. That could be a benefit. So I'm trying to keep some of those angled shapes back in this guy. Sorry, I'm not talking, I'm concentrating. Gotta do that, right? I want his legs back here to be like small. That's not quite what I was imagining. Maybe his body comes up a little bit more. Okay. Alright. I like that design right there. I'm just going to leave it alone, that little rough sketch. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put little weird triangle-like shapes in there. I like that idea. Making him a little different. That's it. I'm going to leave him alone. The eyes, I have the head ball, everything I want, but I could tell you right now, well, I'm fatigued, I'm tired, and I could feel it. I would not have got to this without doing that guy first, without a doubt, 100%. Because that's just I know myself as an artist, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I know the way that I think about stuff. And the other thing too is I'm starting to get loose and get that feel back for Sketchbook Pro that I really like, and that's really starting to come out now, and I can feel it. That's a good thing. That means a little bit late. That means when I do a class demo this coming Thursday, I'll be much more back into the software because I've been out for it for a little bit. Okay, let's get another one going on right here. So I like that angular approach. Look I got sort of a rounded head, and then I got that angles in there with a little bit of curves. So maybe that's part of my solution. Maybe I need to incorporate both angles and curves together. So let me try something else here. I had this other idea just a second ago here of a turtle that has really sort of offset angles, maybe stealthy, obtuse, and counterpart angles. No, that wasn't supposed to be an eye either. Let me back up there. Oops. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hold on, I turned on the symmetry. There we go. Didn't mean to do that. So hold on, something weird. Let me Command Z that real quick. Here we go. I know, some of you were like, what? What did he just do? Here, I'll show you in a minute. I'm not getting the vibe on this guy that I wanted. Fatigue, fatigue. See, I know my limits. This is my time to go play Titanfall and walk away. It's alright, I might hit something that I was not thinking of. Let's do opposite. Instead of peeking it there, what if I peek it in the back? Okay, you know what? It's funny, I dislike this, but I like it because I'm doing some other shape variations in there that I wasn't doing before. And if I keep going with that guy, that could turn into something cool. I just got to find the right place for where it's going to take me. I like this over, like, you know, like old people get that lower jaw that comes out a little bit, and then he's got this weird sort of overhang in here. And I like the back of the shell just being completely flat. And I was putting his foot on a ball, but that's sort of stupid. Okay, that's okay right now. I'm going to leave that guy alone. I can come back into him. He could be a real successful, fun little sketch, right? Part of my development. So, not bad. I'm going to leave him alone. Let's jump to the next one. I'm getting in my Del Taco mood. I'm ready for a burrito before I go to bed. I know that's horrible to say, but when I draw, right? It's just the one thing that gets you ready for sleep time. Okay, so that's where I'm at so far, guys. I'm 13 minutes back into this. Got a couple more. Let's move a little fast because I'm worried I'm getting too fatigued and I'm just tired. That's cool though. I like that shape. Let's see where else that shape might take me. Nah, I was thinking if it overlapped the head and then maybe a foot came down too or something. Bear with me for a minute. Work rough. So I'm going to try to wrap these up. In 5 minutes, I'm going to draw this one. I'm going to draw another one. I'm just going to try to stay as rough as I can. Curve to a straight line. A little bit of a curve. See, turtles got a lot of organics in them, you know. That's I think what's a lot of fun about these guys. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Thin legs and like fat feet. Oh, yeah. That could happen. Thin legs, fat feet. A little bit of a double chin there. Comes back in, jumps in. So I mentioned Phil Mendez earlier. I worked with him on a production back in the day when I had the opportunity to work with him and a couple other really talented guys that had all came from Disney. It was my second job in the industry, and it was really cool. Phil just used to sit and he would just go like this, and he just would crank out shapes. And part of his whole secret to drawing was just staying super rough. And there was such an importance in part of that he used to do is he would just come up with ideas like that, and like bam. See, now I look at that and I'm like, I'm happy, and I feel like part of that was from this piece of crap here. This guy here, I hate that guy right there. I'm not liking him right now, but you know what? I'll like him if it gets me to this level, it gets me to push a shape or think of other angles in a face. That's totally fine. If that'll work, that's part of the solution process. But man, I remember this one guy we worked with, his name is Fred Lucky, was a really talented storyboard artist, and he would rough like that too. He would just sit And that's all they would do to create all their designs. And it was really cool to see artists of that caliber who had been in the industry for 40 years, you know, and worked at Disney way back when, right? And I'm going to try to squeeze a shell on there. And these guys were just cranking out drawings, and it was just so cool to see their shape exploration and how they got to their problem solving phase, you know. Phil Mendez is still in the industry. Fred Lucky passed away. Worked with another guy too, who's a layout artist. He retired. Really talented group of guys. It was really cool. Everything that they would draw would just be like, and there's something to say about that. As you lose your inhibitions, the more rougher you get, you start to see and feel more gesture and shape. And I think that's what's really important. I like that shell. It's almost like a lampshade, isn't it? And there's some weight to it. The weight sort of brings back down to the body here. And I like this shape of this large sort of neck and the way this head is sitting up high. That could be a real fun character. I got a couple. See, now I'm getting tired. Now I'm starting to get a couple sketches that are coming out the way that I want them to. Okay, let's see what else I have here. How much more space I have. I got a little bit more space down here. Okay, let's do another 10 minutes. Okay, let's try to speed this up here. So I'm going to squeeze these in. Who knows? I might get a better design that way. So if I'm going to do a silhouette, I'm going to do a silhouette study first. Long square neck shape in here. Okay, another idea there. Let me fill this guy in real quick. Boom, boom. I like that angle in the back of the head there. I really like that. This angle right here in the front of the head, the way it sort of arches like that, that could be pretty cool. He's got this long neck that comes back in his shell, little feet, and he's got that really long sort of stretched out body. That's pretty cool. New design, right? New possibility there. Okay. All right, now let's rough them out a little bit. So, by the way, for the class, this is what I told you guys to do is I wanted you to go in and take a look at your silhouettes. Okay, I cheated a little bit because I've been drawing longer than you guys have, but imagine if I already had the silhouettes, but you see how I'm developing from the influence of a couple silhouettes. It's 1, 2, 3, and I start developing these other designs. That's what I want you guys to do now, where you're not defining the whole character and doing tons of detail, but you're roughing them out and you're getting the construction to sort of come together, and you start to get that feel for what's happening and transitioning in the shape, and then you go from there and you just keep developing them. Maybe a huge slant like this. Maybe it's got a little piece over like that, and just got a leg in here, let's say. There's my center line. Okay, and then maybe this just has to come up in here, go thick to real thin. Can still push a lot more of my shapes too. And I gotta be careful on that guy. That's actually sort of, I know I was thinking of a pelican when I drew that, but maybe he's like, an Italian turtle. He's got this like, hey guys, what are you doing over there? I don't know, just something like that, right? You can introduce something fun and part of the design. something different. Okay. I like him. There's some fun on there that's starting to develop. Maybe he just ate something. I don't know. Just an idea. Again, another shape. Again, I didn't. That's where I started. That's where I ended up. Key, right, to developing. So, and you can see as I'm doing this page here, my hour of this demo, I'm getting looser and looser. So, imagine what would happen if I went back in and spent another hour doing more of these. I'd be hitting my target left and right, I think. And I have that confidence to say that I would. Because I think that's, I know that that's part of the whole design process is getting in there. And again, that was evidence in class, right? Those people that did lots of silhouette studies were much more successful. And so if I were to keep doing this and moving along this avenue here, I think that's going to happen. I'm thinking a much shorter neck on this guy here. And then maybe it comes up. And what if you just drop him super low? Squeezing that shape and getting really wide. He's got thin feet. He's got really fat, wide toes. Okay. There we go. All right, another pass, different one. Okay, and look, I still got 7 minutes left. I've only been drawing for 23 minutes, so I'll do one more here, and that'll be my complete page. I thought I saw an eye in there real quick. Let's see if I can figure that out. I have to go around and walk like a turtle in my house, I think, sometime to get more of that feel of what's taking place. Okay, let's get down to this guy here. What can we do that's different? Gosh, I have some hard lines here, weird shapes, other shapes here. What if let's just go on this guy, total, like, obtuse angle. Let's see if I can create something different with this guy here. Okay, sorry I'm not talking, I'm concentrating. Look, it's like drawing with a real pen. I love Sketchbook Pro. It's freaking awesome, right? And it's freaking $20. How do you go wrong with 20 bucks? You can't go wrong with 20 bucks. 20 bucks is freaking awesome. Don't get me wrong, I still love my Photoshop. Look at this. It's like drawing with a real pen. I mean, really? For 20 bucks? I remember that one of the biggest arguments back in the day when everything was going digital, back in like 99, when in 2000 I was working at Big Idea Productions. We were doing the feature film stuff, and like Wacom was having us test Wacom tablets and all this stuff. And everyone's biggest complaint was, it just doesn't feel like real pencil. And now you have Sketchbook Pro, and it feels like real pencil. And it's like, and then no one wants to use it. It's awesome. I'm gonna want to get that some of those shapes to wrap out. So let me do a little twinning there. Shouldn't say twinning. I mean a little symmetrical off of that center line there. So I got equal shapes on both sides. Little secret, right? Large shapes, small shapes. Large shape, small shape. Large shape, small shape. Large shape, small shape. It's visually more interesting to read. You see right here, your eye gets a little congested in there. It's getting congested because there's too many shapes of the same size. So if I make a couple of these a little bit larger and then smaller, it's a little bit more interesting read. Okay guys, I got 3 minutes left. I was trying to keep this down to an hour. Okay, that's it. So I'm wrapped up. So look, let me minimize this. Let's take a look at what I have here. Okay, let me scale down here. There we go. Okay, so we started with some rough shapes, silhouettes. The silhouettes get you inspired. They make you see, some of you don't like doing it, but they make you see angles and make you see curves and so on. Now, what you can do though is when you do the rough sketches like this, the next approach is now to come and hit it with a gray. So watch really quick here. If I come into my characters and I created a layer underneath here, and what you do now is take your little marker wedge like this. Hold on, not that wedge. Let's get this one. No, not that wedge. Oh, come on. Thought I had another. Hold on a minute. Let's go to Copics here. Aha. There. And so this is what I was talking about in class. That if you fill it with gray like this, you can still see the silhouette shape, but you can also still see the construction that's happening. And that's sort of the next phase of design that I wanted you guys to think about. See that? I can still see the silhouette that's there, but I can also see the construction that's happening. And this is a good transition point. Let's spend my next 3 minutes. I'll try to get all these done real quick here. This is a really great transition point for part of your design process. Do you see how it makes that silhouette pop out? Absolutely it does. And you can choose to leave a little area of white too if you want. Maybe it's like a stripe, like watch. I can do this stripe, that stripe. Oops, let's just say that was a stripe, that's a stripe. Ah, forget it, let's color the whole guy. See that? It makes the silhouette read pop. Now I can see both construction, face, and really important stuff here. Okay, the good design basics. This is a great way, you know, when you're working on a project for a director, they don't want to see a render that took you 15 hours to do. They want to see your thought process like this. If you can go in and you can give somebody a page like this, and if you could, okay, this took me an hour, but I'm freaking talking at the same time. Yeah, I know, it drives me nuts too. I'm not used to it. Now I've gotten used to it being a teacher. If you can go in and you can crank something like this out in, let's say, 40 minutes a time, that's awesome. You just provided your director or your art supervisor, whoever it might be, with numerous solutions to a design problem or problems in a very short amount of time. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's not what you want. It's what they envision in their mind. Your job is to supplement their need on a production. So, you know, if you guide them, it'd be different if I was doing this for my own children's book, then I could pick sort of my own design. That's totally fine. But when you're working for somebody, you know, your goal is to see, you know what's funny is I remember when I was at Warner Brothers, I was working with a couple different directors. We had like 4 directors on Batman. And one of the directors once told me to change something, and I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, nah, I don't think that's a good idea. I didn't want to change it, but I did it. And you know what? When I saw with the change that he made, I realized what a great decision it was. And I just should realize that was just a lack of my experience and the reason why this guy had been storyboarding for 15, 20 years, and why he was a director and why I wasn't. I was just drawing environments, and I realized right there why it was such a benefit, why this guy had more knowledge than I did, because he'd been boarding forever, and he understood how the scene was going to set up. He understood the pacing of the scene and how the transition was going to happen, right? And that's what's really, really important. So I remember sort of thinking, nah, I don't want to do what he wanted me to do. And after I did it, my work, the whole project and the environment matched up to the scene. Okay? All right, guys. So here we are. We're at 31 minutes. I'm a minute over. There's my sheet right there. I have my rough silhouettes. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pick a couple of the designs that pop out most to me that I like here. And then I'm going to develop those next in the class demo. That's where I'm going to start drawing on top of them. Right now what I have are silhouettes with rough construction on them, with just rough shapes, very loose. And that's what I want. And then hit it with a marker underneath, and boom, this is how you want to save it. Okay? All right, guys, I'll see you back in class. Talk to you soon. Bye.